Hi, this is Paul, and welcome to a quick introduction to using BCC Optical Flow in Avid Media Composer. So you can see I've slowed down this footage of a four-wheeler, and then later I take this Christmas tree ornament and let it shatter, and then freeze the shatter in midair, and then decide I want to see it together again. So I reverse the motion and the whole thing, bring it back together, and set it on its way. Okay, so this is the BCC Optical Flow filter that you're seeing examples of here. And what it does is it changes the speed of your clip and will create new frames if the footage is missing them. So you can slow the footage way down, like I did here, create whatever frames need to be there. Very cool. I can also speed up the footage, which I've done here, to exaggerate the slowdown as the four-wheeler rounds that corner. So I want to point out that the footage I'm working with here is already high-speed video with a very high shutter speed and frame rate. So that's going to make the effect look even better, but you can still get awesome results on just random 1080 footage as well. Alright, so let's dive into how this effect works. I'm going to go into a new sequence, relatively new, and set up the Christmas tree ornament effect first. So here's the regular speed. Like I said, it's high speed footage to begin with, and now we're going to slow it down. So let's go into the effect editor, apply BCC Optical Flow, which is in the time category, and here you can see the filter. The two most important parameters are velocity and input frame rate. You have to set your frame rate to whatever your source clip is, or your speed changes will not look right. So make sure you know your frame rate. And the velocity is what controls the speed. So let's just create some keyframes there. Going to start with one at full speed, go somewhere around here, create another one. Going to make this 0 velocity, and then a further ways down, add another keyframe and set this one to -100. And as I just scrub through, that gives me an idea of where the ball shatters and freezes. If I'm not happy with where it's stopped, I'm just going to alt-click on these keyframes and move them down a bit. I find that this is a lot easier than trying to guess where the keyframes should be at first, just moving them after you've created them. Okay, that looks like the right place. Now, let's smooth out the motion by twirling down this keyframe graph. I'm going to change the interpolation to Bezier, and let's zoom in on here and make sure this is a nice smoothed out graph. Something like that is good. We want it to be almost a perfectly flat line there, and that'll give you a very smooth animation, like an accelerating, decelerating effect. Alright, now that's really all I had to do to set up the ornament shot. Now there's a few other things that you can do with this filter that you should know about. For example, you can increase the optical flow quality, or rather if you see like artifacts appearing around your moving objects, the optical flow quality can help reduce that. Other ways you can help reduce artifacts is by changing the blending mode. Nearest mix will take whatever frame more closely matches the current frame, whereas bidirectional mix pulls equally from earlier and later frames. And if you don't want to create new frames at all, use frame blending only. This is actually a much faster way to use the filter, but it won't create new frames, so you won't get as smooth a motion. So you can kind of see there, like cut in between frames. Other ways you can improve the overall image is to go into the motion estimation and play with some of these parameters here. Use reverse estimation, treats the footage like it's going backwards, which can actually clean up a lot of fragments, so to speak. In fact, when I rendered the result, I did use reverse estimation. And you can also increase the minimum edge contrast. So let's say you have a lot of fine details in your footage that you don't want the filter to look at. If you increase this parameter here, the filter will ignore those. And if you want to see exactly what the filter is doing, change the composite motion vectors to render, and this will show you with red lines what the filter thinks is moving. So again, if I turn down the minute edge contrast, it thinks more of it's moving. If I increase this, it ignores more of the image. So these are all ways you can fine-tune your result and eliminate artifacts. Another thing you can do is adjust the velocity limit. Making this smaller will again reduce the amount of flow that is occurring, or reduce the change in the frame. If you increase it, you get a bigger change in your frame. Enable low velocity correction is very similar and deals with slower objects. Okay, but I don't really need to change either of these things for this particular effect. And minimum edge contrast, again, I'll put that back down too. And then make sure you turn off your vectors because they will render in your final result. Alright, so there we go. There is the smashing ornament. Now another thing I can do with the optical flow filter is, instead of applying it directly to the clip, I can apply it as a filler. Now why would you do that, you might say? Well, you can see the whole clip right there in the timeline. But let's say I want to slow it way down, like way down. So I can use this as a filler. Just select the first below or second below, wherever the video is. And now I'm only limited by the length of my filler track rather than my video. So if I set this to be like 20, so you can see how far I can stretch this out. Whereas the video would be forced to end there, the filler can go on indefinitely. So that's an advantage of using this tool on a filler rather than video. Okay, so that's a quick introduction to optical flow. Next I will show you velocity remap.